In our next presentation, you're going to see a profound transformation. Fran Sisco.
Yay, Fran!
Thank you so much. It's been a profound day here. Really affected by it. Thank you, Dorothy, for inviting me. Thank you, Karen, for having such a wonderful church here, leading such a wonderful church, and thank you all. This is a personal story about, it involves some violence, but it's mainly about peace, prayer, and forgiveness. And I'm going to set the scene. I'm going to say it in present tense as if we're there. I'm hoping that you could see it as I describe it. It's around 4 or 5 minutes long. And at the end of it, I would like to take my iPhone and videotape we all saying, and let peace be with you. Okay? At the conclusion of it. Okay, I'm 29 years old. I've got long, blondish hair. It's been 7 years now since I transitioned to female. I'm a transgender woman. And when I'm 29 years old, I owned a store that I bought when I resigned as a CPA and an audit manager at Price Waterhouse. So I had this very large store, and I'm in the store, and my hair is growing. And that's a shot of when I first bought the store at 29. A couple of years later, my hair was even longer. I had on a sport jacket that was goldish, sometimes pinkish. I had shirts that maybe were a little bit colorful, shoes that were somewhat androgynous. And sometimes customers would come up to me, at least from a distance, and say, who didn't know me yet, would say, "Miss," and then I would talk in my male voice, and they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, sir." But I was happy being androgynous. I was happy being in between two genders because I was a cross-dresser all my life, since I was about 10 years old. And I was okay with it. And I was more okay with it being in my own business. So that day in business, it was a quiet day, customer-wise, and I was alone in the store. My father, who I hired 2 years into my owning the business, he was homesick with a very bad cold. Gary, who was the delivery guy, he was out on a very long delivery and assembling a crib. In the store, I sold toys, games, sporting goods, baby furniture, cribs. The store was larger than this room, and I had a basement to it as well. And I'm alone in the store, and in walks a guy who was probably a year younger than me. And my store had one length about as long as this, the front windows. And he walked in, and he was at the front window. In the store, at the window. Something looked a little off, but it was a distance. And I'm at the counter, and I called to him. "Do you need some help?" Pleasantly. And he says, yeah, I need some help." I said, what kind of toy or gift are you looking for?" And he says, "Well, I'm looking for something for my nephew." "How old is your nephew?" Because that leads into what type of gift. He says, "Well, I don't know, 12, 13. I thought it a little strange that he didn't know his nephew's age. He was buying a gift for him. But I said, not impossible. So I go toward him, and he starts walking toward me. Behind me was a counter. There was a counter in front of me, and behind me were shelves, and he points to items on the shelves. And back then, this is back in the late 70s, a very hot item was a small electronic game called electronic baseball. There was also an electronic football, electronic basketball. And he said, how about one of those? I said, yeah, that's a good choice. It's very popular, but it's $29.99. Nowadays, that would be about $70. And he looked a little unkempt. But now he's closer. I can tell he's not drinking, because I don't smell alcohol. But I still sense something is off. And not off autistic-wise. I can see that he's looking at me in sort of a strange way. And although I loved being androgynous and admitted looking sometimes female and sometimes male, I was okay with myself, and most people never bothered me. And back then, if you may remember, those who were old enough, guys had long hair. John Lennon, we sang this song. I had hair about that length. So I said to him, maybe you want to try a different gift. How about I sold sporting goods. I said, how about a baseball bat? So they were at the front window. So I walked with him. See if I have enough cord here. I walked with him toward the boxes of bats. There were 3 boxes. And I leaned over with in one box, pulling out a bat. And out of the left corner of my eye, I could feel something wrong. And the next thing I know, I hear a phone ring. And I turn around, and I'm in a pool of blood. And I see a bat that's bloody right next to me. And the phone ringing was Joe Sobel, who was the name of my distributor, toy distributor at the time. So I climb to my feet, go to the wall phone, pick it up. And it's not my usual, the name of my store was the Sisco Kid. It's not my usual, Sisco Kid, how can I help you? Instead it's, Joe says, at that time my name was not Fran, it was Frank. Says, Frank, what's the matter? Is that you? What's the matter? He sensed something was wrong. I said, Joe, I've been hit. And I touched the top of my head and it was filled with blood, and I see the blood out on the bat, and next to me, I said, somebody hit me with a bat. Later on in the hospital, they told me my skull was fractured in 14 places. So he didn't just hit me once, but he probably came down like that on my head and more than one time. So now I've recovered, I'm up. Joe says to me, go to see John, the pharmacist next door, call the ambulance. So I do that. He said, I'll stay on the phone. I go to John next door, call the ambulance. John's like, sees me all bloody. The ambulance comes in a few minutes, but he says, go into your store and wait, sit down and wait. Instead of waiting, I guess being a store owner, you want to close up properly. So what I did is I climbed 10 steps to a platform office I had built in the store to look over. And I noticed the $700 that I had left was still there. And then I put my hand in my pocket, and the $900 that I had in my jeans was still there. And I looked in the cash register, and the $1,000 and change was still there. So he was not motivated by robbery. Something else was, and I at the time had an inkling of thinking that it was maybe a hate crime, but that never really entered my mind until many years later, that that's maybe what it was. So as I'm waiting for the ambulance, I go to the back door, shut it, go down to the basement, close the lights, come up, and I'm moving around, and as I'm moving around, I'm hemorrhaging more and more. And the odds of my survival are decreasing more and more. The ambulance comes, I go into New Rochelle Hospital at the time it was Nurse-Shell Hospital. They tell my wife, Lori, and my mother, who was there, that my odds of living were about 50-50. And you and I know people try to be as positive as possible. It was much lower than that. And then if I had survived, I would probably be more in a vegetative state. But I lucked out. I got my eyesight back in a day. I got my hearing back in 2 or 3 days. I was on heavy morphine at the time, and I didn't get my sense of smell back for 7 years. And so I didn't have an appetite. I was thin then, and I got even thinner. Went down to being a toothpick, but I was happy to be alive. They told me you got to stay at home for 2 months and recover. I'm a workaholic. I can't stay at home for 2 hours. And so I went back to work, and people would say to me, Fran, you're so trusting. You're too trusting. You turned your back. I lived my life as a trusting person. My wife told me I was so trusting, and she didn't feel that way. We would lock not only the front door and the side door, but our bedroom door, the suite, and then the bedroom door. And that wasn't me. I was a very trusting kind of person. And that was taken away from me by this guy who was 1 year younger than me, about 28, Irish looking, ruddy complexion. And I would see him, I would know his face now, even 30 years later. And so what happened, I recovered, but they said, you gotta go to a neurologist and check this out. So I go to this neurologist in Hopewell, Long Island, and he looks at me and he says, I've done thousands of these. He just seemed so upset. It was an hour drive there. And I was getting more and more upset that my brain was going to start stopping working, and I wasn't going to be able to be smart anymore, or talk anymore, and stuff like that. So I built up this nervousness. So I got there, and he says to me, what's the matter? I said, what do you mean, what's the matter? You have all the records. You see, I'm worried about myself, my brain. He said, you'd be surprised. I've done thousands of these EEGs. Brain to recover. He said, what you're going to do is you're going to sit in this chair and look at this screen, and I'm going to go behind it to a small monitor, and I'm going to see how your brain reacts to the stimuli. And I'm sorry we're near a church, but I'm going to use a word that, he goes back behind the counter, and he says, I'm sure everything's going to be okay. And I said, oh, I hope so. I said, when will you know? He says, in about 30 seconds. He goes behind me to his monitor. In 8 seconds, he yells out, holy shit! And he yells it out again, holy. And I said, what's the matter? What's the matter? He comes around to me. His face is white. He's like a ghost. He looks at me and he says, I don't know how you're alive and how you're breathing. You have so much left brain, right brain transference, spasmodic activity going on in your brain. It doesn't even make sense that you're able to, your body functions are working. What does that mean? I said to him. He said, well, women have a lot more transference than men. And which I found out much later, trans women have sort of an in-between between that. I said, well, is there any benefit to this? He says, one of the blessings, sometimes with some people, are bursts of creativity. And I don't know if it was a self-induced idea or what, but I went from writing, 1 song a month to 20 songs a month. I was creating, I filed 3 patents, various different business inventions I won't go into, but I became very, very creative, and that stayed with me until now. And then this possible thought that maybe my brain had become a little bit more female because of a bang on the head. And anyway, I'm near the end of this story, but here's what I'm here to tell you. And this is the first time I'm telling this to a large group of people. Because of people telling me, you're too trusting, this could happen again to you. You can't show as much love as you always show in life. I was hearing that over and over. Plus, I started thinking about it. I've lived a life of love, and this thing happened to me. I don't have a vengeful spirit, but a vengeful spirit entered my heart. I think it was really like the devil, and I built up a desire to kill this man. I took a steak knife, and I put it underneath the seat of my car, and I went out in my car to find this guy. I went to drug center after drug center, Yonkers, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, the Bronx area, and every night my wife would say to me, "Where are you going?" And I would say, "I'm just going for a ride." Meanwhile, I knew all day long that this was going to happen at night. I had this steak knife underneath my seat of my car, and I knew I was going to kill this guy. So one night, and the way I was going to do it is follow him into an alleyway and come up underneath him right into the throat. I couldn't believe I was thinking this, and I started praying. Every night when I was out, roaming the streets, I would be praying and praying and praying. And then on the 7th night, when I was in New Rochelle on North Avenue making a turn, I stopped the car, I started praying, and within about 2 or 3 minutes, I was, do you ever go to Jones Beach and body surf on the waves going in, and those waves are so strong coming at you, that wonderful feeling it is? And that's what happened, without the water, but I got washed over with a sense of forgiveness. That hateful, vengeful spirit just completely left me, never returned. I never even told this story to my wife until many years later. And I now look at it as a silver lining, because it really taught me the power of prayer and love and forgiveness. So I want to thank you for the opportunity of sharing that. And it's in your person, it's in your prayer. If you're faced with violence, as was said during the day, love your neighbor anyway. You know, love your enemy anyway. And just embrace love and forgiveness. Thank you. To say, and peace be with you, so I can put this up on the church's website. How should we say? You want to lead it? And may peace be with you? Okay. All right. When I go like 3, okay? I'm going to go everyone loud. And peace be with you. You too, Golden. And peace be with you. Thank you.